Riding that all-important clear round, if you're into jumping, is really important. And there's a couple of key techniques that you need to work on with your horse at home. One of those is being able to adjust the length of your horse's stride so that you can begin to either make it a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, depending on how things are going in the arena. Okay, today I want to talk about adjusting your horse's stride length when jumping tracks. Let's dive in. Hey there, and welcome to the Daily Strides podcast. My name is Lorna Leeson. I'm an equestrian trainer and coach, and I help riders from all over the world to train their own horses alone without a coach or trainer by understanding things a little bit more and also, well, being able to clarify it for their horse as well. Okay, so we're talking about jumping, and actually this month inside of Connection, we have been doing all things jumping related. We've been working through 10 different exercises, 5 on the flat and 5 actual grid work exercises to help improve jumping and to, maybe see more of those all-important clear rounds, okay, begin to kind of crop up in your riding with your horse. And one of the exercises that we were talking about was lengthening and shortening. And I think that this is a really, really important exercise when we are working with our horses, being able to have that like adjustability with regards to what our horse is doing and how our horse is doing it. Now, is this just for jumping? Of course not. Okay. You obviously being able to, kind of pinpoint and predict where your horse is going to be at any point is a really useful thing, okay? Whether you're on the trails, whether you're just riding your horse around an arena yourself, whatever you're doing, okay? But it is an important kind of a tool to be able to take out and apply when you are jumping tracks. And this is because very often the tracks will be obviously created and made by different course builders, and then the distances, they might vary just a squidgen, okay? Sometimes there's tests put in. Sometimes they'll be created for maybe different types of horses or different, maybe horses in different levels of training and development, whatever the case is, okay? And then sometimes your horse might not fit the prescribed distance that would be put in, which of course, what horse really fits anything perfectly? All of our horses are unique. So having this adjustability within the length of the stride is really, really important as a rider. Now, of course, in order to begin working on this, there are a couple of things that you need to be able to do first, okay? I would say first and foremost would be to ride a straight line and being able to get from A to B, okay? And understanding lines and tracks and stuff like that would be important. But also then being able to have, I suppose, a good enough influence over your horse that your half halt can really be used to balance, to if you want to bring your horse's attention to you, all of the things that you can use your half halt for so that you're not just pulling on your horse's mouth. I think there's a lot of riders out there who think that shortening the stride means slowing things down. No, it's not. Not at all, actually, okay? And definitely not when you're jumping jumps. That's definitely not what you want. You need to keep the flow of energy coming, okay? You need to be able to begin creating impulsion and also harnessing a bit of straightness in there as well, so that you and your horse can really and truly meet the jump. And if you had to, in the example we've just used there, by shortening the stride a little bit, meet the jump in the right place, but still have the necessary and required amount of tension and amount of energy within both of your bodies to actually get over the jump, okay? So slowing things down that's not going to work at all. And similarly, lengthening the stride. Being able to lengthen a stride correctly is very different than running your horse or chasing your horse to a fence. And I think this is also confused by many riders. I often see, riders going around, they hair around tracks. It's actually nerve-wracking watching them, to be quite honest. You're like, oh dear. You're kind of sitting there with your fingers crossed the whole way, quietly saying 3 Hail Marys in your head and just praying that they get from, A to B okay. So I think that when we're talking about, anyway, all of this like adjustability, we need to understand that the energy has to still be contained in there, that your horse still has to have impulsion and true impulsion, and that also straightness comes into it. Many times when you begin to adjust the stride, okay, and particularly when we're going shorter with the stride length, our horses can buckle almost a little bit, okay? It's like the back end wants to pass the front end out. It's like, hey, get back there, get back in behind me there, okay? But there is this little bit of buckling that goes on, and that's where maybe there's a weakness in the development when it comes to straightness. There's a weakness, and maybe your aids then have to come in as more of a boundary in that situation just to help your horse if your horse is not physically developed enough to do that himself. So there's a lot going on when we're talking about adjusting the stride length. And I think it all begins with being able to see a stride. So as a rider, when you can kind of predict, okay, and it is a prediction, when you can predict that at whatever point you're at, okay, in the game, when you're making the prediction, that you can fit X amount of strides in between the point that you're talking about, the base of the jump, okay? So you're saying, oh, okay, no, I'll be able to get 5 strides in here. Or you're like, oh, sugar, I'm going to get 4.5 in here. And you, of course, you don't want to meet the jump on a half stride, okay? You don't want chipping in. You ideally don't want to take the long one each time, okay? You want to try and meet it at the right place to give your horse the best possible chance to get over the jump and clear the jump, okay? And good technique and without injuring the parias, okay? You want to do all that. You need to begin being able to see that stride. You need to begin being able to predict where that your horse is actually going to kind of take off from at the base of that jump. And you don't want your horse too deep, as I said. You don't want your horse standing off it too much and taking a long one. You want that it's at the right place for your horse to clear the fence. So what I would suggest doing in that situation is starting with a pole on the ground and cantering over the pole on the ground, but being able to count yourself down. So 3, 2, 1, jump. Now, I know we're saying jump, it's only a pole, but hey, but after all, jump is really just a big canter stride, isn't it? So we're going to go 3, 2, 1, jump, okay? And then you will eventually, well, initially you might find yourself 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, jump, or 3, 2, jump, okay? It seems like an easy thing to do, but being able to count yourself down can be a little bit difficult sometimes, okay? And it doesn't work if you're doing 1, 2, 3, jump. No, because you can just keep counting, can't you? It has to be 3, 2, 1 jump. But once you get the 3, 2, 1 jump part, okay, then you can begin to test yourself more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 jump. Little bit more challenging, okay, to see it from further out. It's a bit easier when you're closer to it. When you're further out, there's more, if you want, there's more maneuverability in what can happen. And that is the whole point, because when you can see from 5 or even 6 strides out, 7 if you want, okay, if you want to really begin to test yourself, but when you can see from that many strides out, how many strides, you can predict how many strides you can get in between, you then have enough strides. Like, think of 5 strides. There's a lot you can do in 5 strides. If you could take 2 inches off of each of those 5 strides, that's 10 inches. That's nearly a foot by the time you've gotten to the fence that you can shorten that distance, okay? So you're able to then begin to play with where your horse is going to get to in order to take off. The takeoff point, you can begin to adjust things. Now, if you're only able to see 3 strides out, yeah, it's still helpful, probably more from the point of view that you can hang on, okay? But having that adjustability, if you can only see 3 strides out, I'm going to kind of run along the lines that you probably don't have a huge amount of adjustability within the stride that you can do really anything from 3 strides or within 3 strides. But 5 strides is really and truly, it's a big enough distance for you to begin making big changes, okay? And you can have those changes made by the time you reach the jump. And again, sometimes it might be like, oh, sugar, I'm going to have to hold to get 6. And sometimes it could be, no, I'm going to have to push to make the 5, okay? Lengthen to make the 5 or shorten to get the 6, okay? So this is where having this kind of, it always reminds me of, you know, an accordion that people play and it kind of comes in and it comes out and it comes in and it comes out, or one of those slinkies, okay? Like it's in and it's out. You need that level of adjustability. And at the end of the day, it's longitudinal suppleness is what we're talking about, okay? It's that suppleness from the tail to the head, okay? It's being able to turn your horse into a slinky, as I said, okay, or into an accordion, okay? No, but seriously, it is being able to stretch out. And just back to that lengthening, I want to like really get into the whole point that lengthening is not chasing the horse into the jump. Some people think they mistake rushing with lengthening. And in fact, that's one of the worst things you can do to your horse when you're approaching the fence, because at the end of the day, all of the energy is going to have fallen out in front of the horse. You've like let it all out through the front door. So by the time the horse actually gets to jump the jump, it's flat, and that's where you're going to take poles with you, okay? And it actually becomes a little bit dangerous as well, like I was saying, you know, the 3 Hail Marys and fingers crossed and all that fun stuff, okay? So when you're lengthening, when you're looking for the longer strides, you're doing so in that the horse is still engaged in the process. There's still enough energy within the container that is you and your horse. It's just that your horse's legs are stretching out a little bit further, okay? So you're not hearing the horse. The horse is not flattening, like you've this image in your head of the horse with the ears pinned back due to the speed it's going because the wind is just blowing its ears back onto its neck, okay? We don't want that. We want that the horse is engaged. There's still a lightness to the horse. There's definitely still a lightness in front to the horse, but that the horse is stretching for the stride, okay? The horse is lengthening his legs a little bit longer. Remember, a little bit can be 2 or 3 inches, 2 or 3 inches over 5 strides. If you're going each stride can make a big difference, okay? And then later you can get for like bigger adjustments. You'll be able to do bigger adjustments within the stride. But it is important to understand that when we're talking lengthening, that's what we're talking about. And similarly, the shorter strides, it's not slowing down. If you're slowing down, you're doing it wrong, okay? We don't want slowing down. We don't want a lack of energy. It's more thinking about if lengthening is getting the stride to be longer, shortening is getting the stride to be shorter, which means the legs, instead of stretching out to cover more ground, they're lifting up a little bit more, okay? So there's more of a collection. I suppose it is collection, really. It's not really collection in the truest sense of the word, but there is more of an upness to it, okay? So you're collecting, that would be a better way to say it rather than collection, okay? So it's like collecting or gathering the energy so as you get this upness within the horse. And can you see now why, even if you were to never jump a jump in your life, being able to do this, okay, being able to have this range of, again, adjustability within your horse can really and truly help with your training. It's going to help move your training forward. Now, I think that when we're talking about all this and as we're going forward, what is important is that you, the rider, have to keep thinking about the fact that you are asking the horse to lengthen or you are asking the horse to shorten. It's not your job to do any of those things, okay? You're just asking the horse to do it. I see riders who, if they're talking about shortening, it's like they physically lie back on the horse, okay? They're like, they've gone from being fairly perpendicular to the floor to almost being diagonal, okay? They've like moved back 45 degrees, okay? And they're like lying back on the horse. And it's like they're physically trying to shorten the whole thing. That's not your job. And in fact, doing that, you are hindering your horse. You're definitely not getting him or allowing him to be in the best possible position to jump the jump, or the best possible space, okay, to jump the jump. And similarly with the lengthening, you'll see riders who throw themselves onto the horse's withers or throw themselves onto the horse's neck. And if we think about just like simple jumping 101 basics, the front end of the horse has to come off the ground to jump the jump. You're not helping if you're perched up there in order to get over the jump, okay? So it's really, really important that you're considering all of these in your riding in order to help your horse make the best possible decision for him in his jumping. Okay, I'm going to offer you 2 different resources today. The first is just a free kind of a a helpful workbook that you can use. It's considerations for creating a jumping training schedule for your horse. You can find that over at stridesforsuccess.com/freebie-jump, okay? And then also I'm going to offer you Connection, where you'll actually get the 10 exercises that you can use to ride. This will include video reviews from me, the whole lot. They're all there, and we can actually work together, yourself and your horse, in the arena. I'll be there helping you as well, and we can work together to help improve your jumping. And you can find out all the details for that over at stridesforsuccess.com/connection. Okie dokie, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you have a super day. Keep well, and I'll chat to you soon. Be good. Bye.